"We don't have a blanket," said the little girl to the millionaire. So he saw that the small child's situation was terrible and decided to change her life. Comment what you thought of this story with a rating from 0 to 10 and let me know what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better. So subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The March heat weighed heavily on the highway that cut through rural Ohio when William Harrison decided to make a stop that would change his life forever. At 52, the businessman was driving his silver SUV along I-71, returning from another tediously successful meeting in Columbus. His chain of building supply stores was thriving across Ohio and Pennsylvania, but on that late afternoon, a persistent thirst made him pull off at the gas station at the entrance to Clearwater. William parked near the convenience store and walked toward the entrance, adjusting the tie he wore even on business trips. The tall man, with well-trimmed grey hair and blue eyes always alert for opportunities, immediately noticed that something was out of place. Next to the side wall of the store, almost hidden behind some empty cardboard boxes, a small figure slept curled up on a piece of dirty cardboard. It was a child. A girl of apparently 4 years old, with disheveled brown hair and clothes that were once white, but now carried the marks of days without care. Her thin arms hugged a small caramel-colored mutt who was also sleeping, instinctively protecting its small human companion. William stopped abruptly. In his years of business experience, he had developed the ability to assess situations quickly, but that scene left him completely disconcerted. He looked around, searching for a responsible adult, some logical explanation for that absurd situation. He found only the normal movement of a small-town gas station, truckers refueling, families having quick snacks, life following its normal course while a child slept abandoned just a few feet away. He said, "Excuse me," gently, crouching at a respectful distance. "Little girl?" The child slowly opened her eyes. They were large, chocolate brown, and carried a sadness that shouldn't exist in someone so young. She curled up even more, pulling the dog closer to her small chest. He continued, "I'm not going to hurt you," keeping his voice low and calm. "What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered, her voice hoarse as if she hadn't spoken in a long time. "And this is Scout." The dog lifted its head, assessing the stranger with clever eyes, but remained calm beside the girl. William noticed that both seemed thin, tired, as if carrying an invisible weight greater than their small bodies. "Lily, where are your parents? Your family?" he asked, feeling a growing tightness in his chest. "Aunt Clara left," Lily replied, her eyes filling with tears she tried to hold back. "She said she would come back, but it's been a long time. Scout and I are waiting, but it's very cold at night and we don't have a blanket." William felt as if someone had just squeezed a fist around his heart. 3 days. A 4-year-old child had been alone for 3 days, sleeping in the open with only a dog for company and protection. He looked around again, this time looking for someone from the station, someone who might have noticed the situation. "Didn't anyone ask if you needed help?" he questioned, incredulous. Lily shook her head. "People pass by, they look, but they don't stop. Scout barks when someone gets too close. He protects me." The child's simple explanation hit William with unexpected force. He had built an empire based on calculations, strategies, and rational decisions. But at that moment, all his business skills seemed useless in the face of a situation that required only basic humanity. "Are you hungry?" he asked, although the answer was obvious from their appearance. Lily nodded timidly. William stood up and extended his hand to her. "Let's get some food, and then we'll sort this situation out, okay?" The girl hesitated for a moment, looking at Scout as if asking the small animal for advice. The dog wagged its tail once, an almost imperceptible movement that seemed to be all the approval she needed. Inside the convenience store, William bought sandwiches, juices, cookies, and a plastic bowl for the dog's water. The cashier, a young man with a bored expression, didn't even seem to notice the unusual situation of a well-dressed businessman buying food for a visibly abandoned child. While Lily and Scout ate voraciously in the station's seating area, William made a few calls. First to Eleanor, his wife, explaining that he would be home late due to an unexpected situation. Then to the emergency number for social services in Clearwater, where a sleepy operator told him no one was available until the next day. "Lily," he said, sitting in the plastic chair beside her, "I need to take you somewhere safe tonight. There's a hospital here in town where they can take proper care of you." The girl stopped eating and looked at him with sudden panic in her eyes. "What about Scout? He can't be alone. He only has me." "Scout is coming with us," William promised, surprising himself with how easily he made that promise. "I won't separate you." On the way to the hospital, Lily hummed a tune that made William brake the car abruptly. It was a regional lullaby, specific to the Clearwater area, that his own mother used to sing when he was a child. A song that very few people knew, passed down only orally among the oldest families in the region. "Where did you learn that song?" he asked, his heart racing. "Mommy used to sing it to me," Lily answered simply. Before she left too, William parked the car at the hospital with more questions than answers, a child he had just met in the back seat, and the unsettling feeling that this chance encounter had not been by chance at all. The St. Vincent de Paul Hospital in Clearwater operated at a reduced pace during the early morning hours. But the arrival of William with Lily and Scout caused a small commotion at the reception. The nurse on duty, a middle-aged woman named Rose, initially tried to prevent the dog from entering, but William's determined expression and Lily's quiet crying made her reconsider. "It's an exceptional situation," William explained, showing his ID and credit cards as a guarantee of payment. "The child was abandoned, and the animal is her only source of security." Dr. Henry Adams, the pediatrician on call, was a man in his early 40s with enough experience to recognize delicate cases. Upon examining Lily, he found clear signs of dehydration and malnutrition, but nothing to indicate direct physical abuse. The girl was scared but cooperative, answering the medical questions with a disturbing maturity for her age. "She's been without adequate food for at least 3 days," the doctor informed William after the examination. "Physically, she'll recover well with hydration and regular meals. But I need to ask some questions about how she came to you." William recounted the afternoon's events, from finding Lily at the station to the decision to bring her to the hospital. The doctor took careful notes, especially when William mentioned the girl talking about an Aunt Clara who had left. "Cases like this require the involvement of social services," Dr. Adams explained. "But since it's the middle of the night, we'll keep the child under observation until tomorrow. You can stay with her if you wish." While Lily received an IV drip and rested in a pediatric bed, Scout slept curled up in a makeshift basket on the floor. William settled into the armchair beside her, unable to relax completely. There was something about Lily's story that bothered him, pieces that didn't fit together properly. Around 4 in the morning, when the hospital was at its quietest, Lily woke up scared. "Where's Aunt Clara?" she asked, disoriented by the change of environment. "Remember me?" "I'm William. You're safe now," he said, approaching the bed. "Can you tell me more about your Aunt Clara?" Lily rubbed her small eyes and looked at Scout, who had lifted his head upon hearing her voice. She got very tired. She slept a lot during the day and sometimes forgot to make food. "She said she was going to get medicine and asked me to wait with Scout at the station. And your mummy, where is she?" William asked gently. "Mummy left a long time ago. She sang that pretty song to help me sleep," Lily replied, starting to hum the melody that had disturbed William in the car again. The song was definitely the same one his mother sang, a specific version from the Clearwater region that his family had passed down for generations. William felt a knot growing in his stomach. It couldn't be a coincidence. "Lily, what was your mummy's full name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Dolores. Dolores Shaw, she answered, yawning. She worked at a place with lots of things for building houses. William's world stopped. Dolores Shaw had been one of his most dedicated employees, working in the administrative department for almost 3 years. A quiet, efficient woman who always spoke fondly of her little daughter. William vaguely remembered that she had resigned abruptly 5 years ago, citing family problems that required her to move to another state. "My God," he murmured, the realization hitting him like a punch to the gut. "What is it?" asked Lily, noticing the change in his expression. "Nothing, dear." "Keep resting," he said, but his mind was in turmoil. If Lily was Dolores's daughter, and if Dolores had worked for him, then there was a direct connection between his company and this child's abandonment. Worse still, if Dolores had left years ago, what had happened to her? William spent the rest of the early morning reliving his memories of Dolores Shaw. She was a shy woman, always punctual, who rarely participated in company gatherings. He remembered her mentioning she had a young daughter and faced financial difficulties as a single mother. When she resigned, William had been surprised but hadn't investigated the reasons deeply. Business was business, and employees came and went constantly. Now, looking at the sleeping child in the hospital bed, he felt consumed by a guilt he couldn't quite define. Had he failed as an employer, as a human being? Had Dolores needed help, and he had simply accepted her departure without question? Early in the morning, William called Robert, his accountant and longtime friend, asking him to check the company's old files on Dolores Shaw. He also contacted Victor, his younger brother and business partner, to inform him that he would be absent for a few days due to an urgent personal matter. "A personal matter?" Victor questioned over the phone. "William, we have the meeting with the suppliers today. You can't just disappear like this. Cancel it or reschedule." William replied dryly, "There are more important things than business happening right now." The social worker arrived at the hospital around 9 in the morning. Carla Peterson was a competent woman in her late 30s, accustomed to dealing with complex cases of child abandonment. After hearing William's account and examining the available documentation, she established that legal proceedings would be necessary to determine Lily's family situation. "Are you willing to take temporary custody?" Carla asked directly. "Cases like this can take weeks to resolve, and we need a suitable temporary home." William hesitated for a moment. Eleanor knew nothing about this situation other than that he had been delayed on his trip. How would he explain that he was considering bringing an unknown child home? How would he justify such an impulsive decision? "Yes," he finally answered. "I'll take temporary responsibility." While Carla prepared the necessary paperwork, William watched Lily playing with Scout near the hospital's small aquarium. The girl had regained some color in her cheeks after a night of proper hydration, and for the first time since he'd found her, she seemed relaxed. "Lily," he called, "would you like to stay at my house for a few days while we look for your family?" "And can Scout come too?" she asked immediately. "Scout comes with us," he confirmed, sealing a commitment that would completely change the course of his organized and predictable life. During the drive back to his town in a neighboring part of the state, William called Eleanor to prepare her. The conversation was tense, full of uncomfortable pauses and questions he didn't yet know how to fully answer. William and Eleanor's house was in a noble residential neighborhood, with well-manicured gardens and high walls that guaranteed privacy. When the silver SUV parked in the garage, Eleanor was already waiting at the kitchen door, her arms crossed and an expression William knew very well after 25 years of marriage. Eleanor Harrison, at 47, maintained the natural elegance that had won William over in their youth. Her always impeccable blonde hair and carefully chosen clothes reflected an organized, controlled life where unforeseen events were not welcome. When she saw her husband get out of the car, followed by a small child and a mutt, her face visibly hardened. "William, what is the meaning of this?" she asked, not moving from the door. "Eleanor, this is Lily," he said, placing a protective hand on the girl's shoulder. "And this is Scout. They're going to stay with us for a few days." "A few days?" Eleanor's voice went up an octave. "You disappear. You call me saying you'll be late, and now you show up with a child. William, have you gone mad?" Lily hid behind William, intimidated by the hostility in the woman's voice. Scout growled softly, an almost imperceptible sound that showed his loyalty to the girl. "Let's talk inside," William said firmly. "Lily, how about you and Scout wait in the living room? There's a television in there." While Lily timidly settled on the living room sofa, accompanied by Scout, who didn't move an inch away from her, William and Eleanor faced off in the kitchen. The conversation that followed was intense, laden with 25 years of unresolved frustrations. "How could you make a decision like this without consulting me?" Eleanor questioned, her blue eyes shining with anger. "Bringing a strange child into our home, taking on responsibilities that are not ours? She's Dolores Shaw's daughter," William explained. "Remember Dolores? She worked at the company for 3 years. So what? That doesn't make us responsible for all the orphaned children in the world, William." "Orphaned?" William felt a chill. "How do you know she's an orphan?" Eleanor paused, realizing she had revealed more than she intended. It's obvious, isn't it? If the child is abandoned." William studied his wife's face, noticing signs of nervousness she was trying to hide. "Eleanor, what do you know about Dolores Shaw that I don't?" "Nothing," she replied quickly, looking away. Just that it's typical of you to take on unnecessary responsibilities when you feel guilty about something." The accusation hit William squarely, but it also brought a disturbing revelation. How could Eleanor know he felt guilty when he had barely processed that feeling himself? At that moment, a small voice came from the living room. "Can I use the bathroom?" Eleanor sighed heavily and walked to the living room, where she found Lily standing next to the sofa, clearly uncomfortable. "It's down that way," she said, pointing to the hallway, her tone still cold but less hostile. "Thank you, Mom," Lily replied politely, a politeness that surprised Eleanor. While Lily was in the bathroom, Scout remained alert in the living room, his watchful eyes following Eleanor's every move. The dog seemed to be assessing whether she posed a threat to his little charge. "At least the child has manners," Eleanor muttered, sitting in the armchair farthest from the sofa. "She has a name," William corrected, "and she spent 3 days abandoned at a gas station. A little compassion wouldn't hurt." "Compassion?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "William, do you have any idea how hard it is for me to have a child in this house?" The question carried an emotional weight that William recognized, but they had long avoided discussing it openly. During the early years of their marriage, they had tried to conceive without success. Doctor's appointments, treatments, frustrated hopes, all of it had created a deep wound that had never fully healed. "Ellie, I understand it's difficult, but—" "No, you don't understand," she interrupted him, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "For years, our house was filled with empty rooms, cribs that were never used, hopes that never materialized. I built a life where I managed to accept that we would never be parents, and now you just show up with a child and expect me to—" Lily returned silently from the hall, but stopped when she heard the conversation. William saw her first and gestured for her to approach, but the girl hesitated, sensing the tension in the room. "Mom," Lily said softly, addressing Eleanor, "I don't want to be a bother. If you don't want me to stay here, it's okay. Scout and I can go back to the station." The devastating simplicity of Lily's offer struck Eleanor like lightning. The girl wasn't demanding, wasn't creating drama. She was simply offering to return to a situation of abandonment so as not to cause trouble for adults she barely knew. Eleanor looked at the small, thin child, who held William's hand with a trust she herself had never felt when holding a child's hand. Something in her chest moved, an emotion she had buried long ago. "No," she said finally, her voice softer. "We're not sending you away. You can stay. For now." The relief on Lily's face was immediate and genuine. "Thank you, Mom. I promise to be good." "Call me Aunt Eleanor," she said, surprising herself with the offer. For the rest of the day, the house slowly adjusted to the presence of Lily and Scout. William improvised a place for the dog to sleep in the utility room, while Lily would stay in the guest room. Eleanor kept her distance, watching from afar as the girl interacted with cautious respect with everything around her. At night, during dinner, Lily ate in silence, clearly trying not to be a nuisance. It was then that she commented casually, "Aunt Clara said my mom really liked her boss. She said he was a good man, that he took good care of his employees." William almost choked on his food. "Your mother talked about her boss?" "She did. She said he had nice silver hair and blue eyes, and that he always asked if she needed anything." Lily looked at William with curiosity. "You have blue eyes and silver hair too." The silence that followed was heavy. Eleanor looked at her husband with an expression that mixed surprise and growing suspicion. "Lily," William said carefully, Did she ever mention why she left her job?" The girl thought for a moment. "Aunt Clara said she got really sad because someone at her work got hurt badly. After that, she couldn't work there anymore." William felt the blood run cold in his veins. 5 years ago, there had been an accident at the company. An employee had fallen from a scaffold due to faulty safety equipment. The man had survived, but was left with permanent injuries. William remembered that Dolores had been very shaken at the time, but he had never connected her departure with that event. "What accident was that?" asked Eleanor, noticing her husband's sudden pallor. "It's not important now," he replied quickly, but his mind was racing. If Dolores had left because of the accident, and if she had died years later leaving Lily an orphan, then there was much more to this story than he had initially imagined, and worse still, perhaps there were responsibilities he had neglected for years. The first week with Lily in the house revealed aspects of family life that William and Eleanor had never imagined. The girl woke up early, always silent, and waited patiently for the adults to get up. Scout remained constantly by her side, like a faithful guardian who never completely relaxed his vigilance. William had requested a temporary leave from work, citing urgent personal matters. Victor had protested vigorously, especially since important contracts depended on the older brother's presence, but William stood firm in his decision. Robert got the files on Dolores Shaw, he informed Eleanor during breakfast, while Lily played in the yard with Scout. "There are some inconsistencies in the documents that worry me." "What kind of inconsistencies?" Eleanor asked, pouring more coffee for her husband. "The address she provided when she was hired doesn't exist. The emergency phone number was always out of service, and there's a 2-year gap in her professional history before she started working with us." Eleanor watched Lily through the kitchen window. The girl had found some flowers in the garden and was making small bouquets, talking softly to Scout as if he were her closest confidant. "She's very quiet for a 4-year-old, Eleanor observed. "Yesterday I found her making her own bed." "What child that age does that?" "A child who learned to take care of herself very early," William replied sadly. In the afternoon, while William went to the company to handle urgent matters, Eleanor was left alone with Lily for the first time. Initially uncomfortable with the responsibility, she tried to keep her distance, offering only basic supervision. But something unexpected happened when Lily approached her in the kitchen. "Aunt Eleanor, can I help you do something?" the girl asked, her large eyes fixed on the woman's face. "Help with what?" Eleanor questioned, genuinely surprised. "Anything. Aunt Clara always said I should help, so I wouldn't be a burden to people." The phrase struck Eleanor deeply. Lily wasn't offering help out of childish politeness. She was trying to secure her place by being useful. It was a survival strategy learned far too young. "You are not a burden, Lily," Eleanor said, crouching down to be at the girl's level. "And you don't have to do anything to deserve to stay here." "Are you sure?" Lily asked, a touching vulnerability in her voice. "I'm sure," Eleanor confirmed, feeling a strange and powerful emotion grow in her chest. That afternoon, they made cookies together. Lily proved surprisingly adept for her age, following instructions with meticulous attention and celebrating each small success with a shy smile that melted Eleanor's carefully constructed defenses. When William returned from the company, he found the two in the kitchen, covered in flour and laughing at something Lily had said. The scene hit him with an emotional punch. It was exactly the kind of domestic moment he and Eleanor had dreamed of for years, but had never managed to achieve. "How were things at the company?" Eleanor asked, noticing the tense expression on her husband's face. "Complicated," he replied, watching Lily proudly show off the cookies she had helped make. "Victor wants an urgent family meeting. He says my recent decisions are negatively affecting the business." "And are they?" Eleanor asked directly. William hesitated. During the meeting with key clients that afternoon, his mind had been constantly divided between the contracts and the revelations about Dolores Shaw. He had made concentration errors that would normally never happen. "Maybe," he admitted. That night, after Lily had gone to sleep, William received a call that completely changed his perspective on the situation. It was from Dr. Adams, the pediatrician who had treated Lily at the hospital in Clearwater. "Mr. Harrison, I managed to get some information about Clara Shaw," the doctor said. "She passed away at the hospital in Athens a week ago due to complications from untreated diabetes. Passed away." William felt the ground move beneath his feet, but Lily said she had gone to get medicine. Apparently, Clara knew she was very ill, but hid the severity of the situation from the girl. She left Lily waiting at the station, probably hoping to get treatment and come back. Unfortunately, she arrived at the hospital in critical condition and did not survive. The reality of the situation hit William with full force. Lily wasn't temporarily abandoned. She was truly an orphan. Clara had tried to protect her until the last moment, but had failed. "There's more," the doctor continued. "They found some personal documents with Clara. Apparently, she was indeed Dolores Shaw's sister, as Lily had said." "And what about Lily's father? Is there any information about him?" William asked, though he suspected the answer. "No official information. According to the documents, the father is listed as unknown." After hanging up the phone, William remained silent for several minutes, processing the implications of that call. Eleanor waited patiently, recognizing that something fundamental had changed. "Clara passed away," he said finally. "Lily is truly alone in the world." Eleanor covered her mouth with her hand, tears forming in her eyes. Over the last few days, she had begun to grow attached to the girl, but still held out hope that the situation was temporary. Now, they faced the reality of a permanent responsibility. "What are we going to do?" she asked. "I don't know," William admitted. "But I know I can't just hand her over to the adoption system and pretend none of this happened." "Why not?" Eleanor questioned, although her own voice revealed that she didn't want that solution either. "Because there's something more to this story. The connection with Dolores, the accident at the company, the way Lily appeared in my life. I don't believe in coincidences of this magnitude." That night, Eleanor went to check on Lily before going to bed. She found the girl awake, looking out the guest room window. "Can't sleep?" Eleanor asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm thinking about Aunt Clara," Lily said. "I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if she got her medicine." Eleanor felt her heart break. The child still had hope that her caregiver would return. How could she explain that this hope was in vain without completely destroying her faith in adults? "Lily, Sometimes the people who take care of us can't come back, even if they really want to, she said carefully. Like Mommy? Lily asked, turning to look directly into Eleanor's eyes. Like your mommy, Eleanor confirmed, fighting back tears. So am I going to stay here forever? The question was asked with a mixture of hope and fear that broke Eleanor's heart. If you want to stay, we want you to stay, Eleanor replied, surprised at how easily the words came out. Even if I'm not your real daughter, families aren't just made of blood, Lily. Sometimes they're made of choices and love. That night, Eleanor slept poorly, her mind alternating between painful memories of her own infertility and the new reality of having a child in the house who truly needed her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future as a mother. The family meeting that Victor had demanded took place on a rainy Monday at the headquarters of Harrison & Brothers. William arrived at the main office for the first time in 2 weeks, feeling strangely out of place in the environment that had been his second home for decades. Victor Harrison, 5 years younger than William, was waiting in the conference room with an expression that mixed irritation and concern. At 47, he maintained the youthful appearance that had always helped him with clients, but his eyes revealed an anxiety William had rarely seen before. You finally show up, Victor said, closing the door behind his brother. William, we need to talk seriously about what's happening with you. What do you mean? William asked, sitting on the other side of the mahogany table that decorated the room. I mean, you disappeared from the company without a proper explanation. Cancelled important meetings, and according to Robert, you're investigating old employee files. Clients are starting to ask if there's a problem with the company's management. William watched his brother carefully. He had known Victor since he was born, had been his protector during childhood, his mentor in business. But something in Victor's defensive posture alerted him that there was more to this conversation than simple business concerns. The files I'm investigating are about Dolores Shaw, William said directly. Remember her? Victor's face stiffened almost imperceptibly. Vaguely. An administrative employee who left a few years ago, right? She left right after the accident with Anthony Fisher. William continued watching his brother's reactions closely. The employee who fell from the scaffold due to faulty safety equipment. William, why are you digging this up? It was an accident, investigated by the proper authorities. There was no fault on the company's part. There was no official fault, William corrected, but Robert found some inconsistencies in the reports from that time. Equipment that should have been replaced weeks before the accident but wasn't. Suppliers who offered cheaper equipment in exchange for certain favors. The silence that followed was tense. Victor got up and walked to the window, watching the rain fall on the company's courtyard. William, are you implying there was intentional negligence? I'm asking if you know something about this situation that I don't. Victor turned abruptly. Of course not. Why would I know anything? Because you were responsible for hiring suppliers back then, because you signed the reports approving the safety equipment, and because Dolores worked directly with you on the administrative side of those contracts. The tension in the room became almost physical. Victor returned to the table, his hands trembling slightly as he unnecessarily flipped through some papers. William, even if there were some. Shortcuts. At the time, that was 5 years ago. Why does it matter now? Because Dolores Shaw had a daughter, William said, his voice low but firm. A girl who was left an orphan and abandoned due to a chain of events that may have started with negligence from our company. A daughter? Victor seemed genuinely surprised. Dolores never mentioned having children. She did mention it, several times. You just weren't paying attention. At that moment, the door to the room opened, and Christine, the executive secretary, entered with a worried expression. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a person here who insists on speaking with Mr. William. She says it's about Dolores Shaw. William and Victor looked at each other. Let her in, William said. The woman who entered was about 50 years old, with grey hair pulled back in a severe bun and simple but clean clothes. Her calloused hands indicated a life of manual labor, and her eyes carried a determination that immediately impressed him. "My name is Edna Shaw," she said, addressing William directly. "I was Clara Shaw's sister-in-law. I heard you are taking care of my sister-in-law, Dolores's daughter." "How did you know that?" William asked, surprised. "Clearwater is a small town. News travels fast, especially when it involves orphaned children and rich businessmen." Victor stood up, clearly uncomfortable with the woman's presence. Perhaps it would be better to continue this conversation another time. "No," Edna said firmly. "I came here because I have a legal right to Lily. I am her closest living relative now." William's heart went cold. A legal right. "Dolores was married to my brother Paul before he passed away. That makes me Lily's legitimate aunt. And unlike you, I know the truth about what happened to Dolores." "What truth?" William asked, though a part of him feared the answer. Edna looked directly at Victor before replying. "The truth about why she really left the company. It wasn't because of the employee's accident. It was because she discovered someone here was taking money from suppliers to approve faulty equipment. And when she threatened to report it, she was fired under pressure." "That's a lie," Victor said quickly. Dolores resigned voluntarily. "Dolores was forced to leave," Edna corrected, "and then she was threatened to keep silent about what she knew. The psychological pressure was so great that she developed severe depression. That's why she left Lily with Clara and disappeared." William felt as if the floor had vanished from under his feet. Threatened by whom? Edna looked at Victor again. By someone who had a lot to lose if the corruption scheme was discovered. "I'm not going to listen to any more of these baseless accusations," Victor said, heading for the door. "William, when you decide to come back to reality and stop listening to opportunists, let me know." After Victor left, Edna sat in the chair he had occupied. "I have documents," she said. "Letters that Dolores wrote to Clara detailing what was happening. Proof that she tried to file formal complaints but was stopped." "Why are you telling me this?" William asked. "Because I want the person responsible for destroying my family to pay for what they did, and because Lily deserves to know the truth about what happened to her mother. And if I can ensure justice for Dolores, will you give up your claim to Lily's custody?" Edna studied him for a long moment. "It depends. Do you really care about her? Or is she just a way to ease your guilt?" The question struck William deep in his soul. For the past 2 weeks, he had questioned his motives several times. Was he acting out of genuine affection for Lily, or simply trying to compensate for past professional and personal failures? "I don't know," he admitted honestly, "but I know she deserves a family that loves her unconditionally. And I know I won't allow the injustices of the past to continue destroying innocent lives." Edna nodded slowly. "Then maybe we can work together. But I need real guarantees that Lily will be protected and loved, not just kept out of guilt or obligation." That afternoon, while driving back home in the persistent rain, William processed the devastating revelations. His own brother had possibly destroyed Dolores Shaw's life and indirectly created the circumstances that led to Lily's abandonment. The company he had built with so much pride was founded on corruption and negligence. When he arrived home, he found Eleanor and Lily in the kitchen, preparing dinner together. The domestic scene, which should have been comforting, now carried the weight of all the day's discoveries. Dinner passed. In tense silence, William poked at the food on his plate without appetite, his mind still processing the devastating revelations from his meeting with Edna Shaw. Eleanor sensed that something serious had happened, but waited for the right moment to talk. Lily, with her childish sensitivity heightened by months of uncertainty, noticed the change in the atmosphere. "Is Uncle William sad?" she asked, breaking the silence. William looked up and met the girl's concerned gaze. Even at 4 years old, she showed an ability for emotional perception that constantly surprised him. "I'm just thinking about some things from work," he replied, trying to smile. "My mom used to get sad when she thought about work too." Lily commented casually, turning her attention back to her plate. She said bad people did bad things there. Lily's words struck William like arrows. Even a 4-year-old child had noticed that Dolores was being affected by problems at work. How had he, as her boss, been so oblivious to his employees' suffering? After putting Lily to bed, William and Eleanor finally had the conversation that had been pending since he got home. In the living room, with only one lamp lit, creating an intimate atmosphere, he recounted the day's events, from the confrontation with Victor to the meeting with Edna Shaw. "William, this is very serious," Eleanor said when he finished. "If Edna's accusations are true, Victor not only destroyed Dolores's life, but also endangered the safety of other employees." "I know. And the worst part is that I was the majority partner. It was my responsibility to oversee these operations. You can't blame yourself for not knowing about corruption that was being deliberately hidden from you." "I can," William replied bitterly. "A good leader pays attention to their team. Dolores was clearly suffering, and I simply accepted her resignation without question." Eleanor moved closer to her husband on the sofa. In 25 years of marriage, she had learned to recognize when he was punishing himself for circumstances beyond his control. "The question now is, what are you going to do with this information?" "I don't know. If Edna is right about Victor, I need to take legal action. But that will destroy the company we built together, and there are innocent employees who depend on the company's stability. And Lily? What happens to her if Edna decides to sue for custody?" William ran his hands over his face, feeling the weight of all the difficult decisions he had to make. "Edna said, 'We can work together if I ensure justice for Dolores.' But I'm not sure I can trust her." At that moment, a soft cry came from the hallway. Eleanor got up immediately and found Lily in the hall, hugging Scout, clearly disturbed by a nightmare. "I dreamed about Mommy," the girl said between sobs. "She was calling for me, but I couldn't get to her." Eleanor picked Lily up, feeling the fragility of the small body trembling against her chest. "It was just a dream, my dear. You're safe here with us. But what if she's lost? What if she needs me?" The question broke Eleanor's heart. How do you explain to a 4-year-old child that her mother would never come back? How do you give her the necessary emotional closure without destroying her ability to trust adults? William approached and stroked Lily's hair. "Your mom isn't lost," he said softly. "She's in a place where she no longer feels pain or sadness, and she wants you to be happy and safe." "How do you know?" Lily asked, her big eyes fixed on William's face. "Because I knew your mother. She told me about you with so much pride. She said you were brave and smart, and that she wanted you to have a life full of love." For the first time since she had arrived at the house, Lily cried openly, not the silent, restrained crying she had shown before, but the liberating cry of a child who finally felt safe enough to express her pain. Eleanor and William took turns comforting her, and gradually Lily calmed down. When she finally fell asleep on the living room sofa between the two adults, a moment of clarity struck the couple. "She's our daughter now," Eleanor said softly, looking at Lily's serene, sleeping face. "She is," William agreed, "and I'll do whatever it takes to protect her." The next morning, William made a decision that would change the course of his professional life. He called Robert and asked him to schedule a meeting with a lawyer specializing in corporate law and another specializing in adoption. "William, are you sure about this?" Robert asked over the phone. "Investigating your own company could have devastating consequences. The consequences of not investigating have already been devastating for innocent people," William replied. "I can't continue living on a foundation of corruption and negligence." Meanwhile, Eleanor had made her own important decision. During breakfast, She sat down with Lily and started a conversation she had been planning since the day before. "Lily, would you like to go to school?" she asked. "School?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Like the other kids?" "Exactly like the other kids. You can learn to read, write, make new friends. And can I come home afterward? Of course you can. This is your home now." The genuine joy on Lily's face was like a ray of sunshine breaking through the heavy clouds that hung over the family. For the first time, she was talking about the future, with hope instead of fear. That afternoon, while Eleanor and Lily visited local schools, William met with Dr. Francis Aguilar, the corporate lawyer recommended by Robert. The elegant office in the city centre contrasted with the gravity of the issues that needed to be discussed. "If the allegations are confirmed," Dr. Aguilar explained after hearing the full account, "you will have several legal options. You can sue your brother for mismanagement and corruption, you can report the crimes to the proper authorities, or you can try to resolve the matter internally. What are the implications of each option? Criminal proceedings will take years to resolve and will publicly destroy the company's reputation. An internal resolution might be quicker, but it may not satisfy the victim's thirst for justice. And what about the company itself, the innocent employees? Depending on the extent of the corruption, the company might survive with significant administrative restructuring, but Victor would have to be removed from any position of responsibility." That night, William received an unexpected call from Victor. His brother's voice was tense, filled with an urgency William had rarely heard before. "William, we need to talk. There are things you need to know before you make any rash decisions." "What kind of things?" "Not over the phone. Can we meet tomorrow at the usual place?" The usual place was a small cafe in the city centre where the brothers used to meet during their youth to resolve family conflicts. William hadn't been there in over 10 years. "All right," he agreed. "But Victor, if you have relevant information about Dolores Shaw or about corruption in the company, you better be completely honest." "I will be," Victor promised. "More honest than I've ever been about anything." After hanging up, William stood looking out the living room window, where he could see Eleanor and Lily playing in the yard with Scout. The scene of domestic happiness was threatened by secrets from the past that had not yet been fully revealed. The central cafe maintained the same simple decor from decades ago, with worn wooden tables and the familiar aroma of fresh coffee mixed with the smell of fresh pastries. William arrived a few minutes before the agreed time and chose a table in the back, away from prying ears. His hands trembled slightly as he stirred his coffee, anticipating the conversation that could definitively destroy his relationship with his brother. Victor entered exactly on time, but his appearance was drastically different. His hair, always impeccably combed, was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that suggested sleepless nights. His clothes, though still elegant, looked like they had been put on in a hurry. "Thanks for coming," Victor said, sitting in the opposite chair. His hands also trembled as he ordered a coffee from the waitress. "You said you had something important to tell me," William said directly. Victor took a deep breath, like someone preparing to dive into deep, unknown waters. "William, 5 years ago I made terrible mistakes. Mistakes that destroyed lives and that I carry on my conscience every day." "What kind of mistakes?" "The corruption scheme that Edna Shaw mentioned. It existed, and I was responsible for it." William felt as if he had been punched in the gut. Although he suspected the accusations, hearing the direct confession from his brother was devastating. "Why, Victor? Our company was thriving. We didn't need illegal shortcuts." "Because I had debts," Victor admitted, avoiding his brother's gaze. "Gambling debts you never knew existed. The creditors were threatening me, and I needed money fast." "Gambling debts?" William leaned back in his chair, shocked. "Victor, you never showed any interest in gambling, because I hid it from everyone, especially you. It started as social entertainment, a few poker games with important clients. Then came the underground casinos, online betting, the promises of easy wins. Victor paused, his hands clenching into fists on the table. In 2 years, I accumulated a debt of almost $500,000. William remained silent, processing the magnitude of the confession. $500,000 was a substantial amount, even for someone in his financial position. And Dolores discovered the scheme? Dolores was too meticulous for my own good, Victor replied bitterly. She noticed discrepancies in the supplier contracts, differences between the quoted prices and the amounts actually paid. When she started investigating, she found out I was receiving illegal commissions in exchange for approving lower quality equipment, and you fired her to protect the scheme. Worse than that, Victor said, his voice breaking. I blackmailed her. William leaned forward, feeling a cold anger rise in his chest. What do you mean? Dolores was a single mother, completely dependent on her job to support her daughter. When she threatened to report the irregularities, I told her I would destroy her professional reputation, that I would ensure she never got another job in the region. I said I would invent accusations of theft against her. My God, Victor. She was desperate. She tried to negotiate, asked me to just stop the scheme in exchange for her silence, but I was too deep in debt. The creditors wouldn't accept delays. Victor covered his face with his hands, so I forced her to resign voluntarily and sign a confidentiality agreement under threat. William felt a growing nausea. And then? What happened to her after she left the company? She tried to find work in other cities, but I sabotaged her attempts. I called professional contacts and gave false negative references. I wanted to make sure she wouldn't have enough stability to report me. You destroyed an innocent woman's life to protect your own lies. Yes, Victor admitted, tears starting to stream down his face, and it got worse. Dolores developed severe depression, couldn't properly care for Lily. She was forced to leave the girl with Clara and practically disappeared. William stood up abruptly, the chair scraping on the wooden floor. Several other cafe patrons looked their way, but he didn't care. Victor, you didn't just commit corruption. You systematically persecuted and destroyed an entire family. I know, Victor exploded, his voice echoing in the small cafe. You think I don't live with this every day? You think I don't constantly think about Dolores and her daughter? If you thought about it, why did you never tell me? Why did you allow me to completely ignore what had happened? Victor stood up too, facing his brother. Because I was scared. Scared of losing everything, scared of going to prison, scared of disappointing you. And now, what's changed now that you're finally confessing? Lily, Victor replied simply, when you showed up with her, when you started investigating Dolores's past, I realized the truth would eventually come out. And seeing that child reminded me that my actions had real consequences on innocent lives. William sat down again, feeling emotionally exhausted. Do the gambling debts still exist? No. I managed to pay them off with the money from the illegal commissions, but the damage was already done, and you kept betting. I stopped completely after Dolores left. The guilt was too great, but the stolen money had already been used. The faulty equipment had already caused Anthony Fisher's accident. William remembered the employee who had fallen from the scaffold. Does Anthony know the accident was caused by deliberate negligence? No. He believes it was just bad luck, but he suffers from chronic pain and physical limitations to this day. My God, William murmured. How many lives did you affect with your decisions? Many, Victor admitted, and not a day goes by that I don't think about it. They remained silent for several minutes, the weight of the confessions hanging between them like a toxic cloud. Finally, William asked the crucial question. What do you expect me to do with this information? I don't know, Victor answered honestly. Part of me wants you to report me, to finally pay for everything I've done. Another part is afraid of the consequences for my family, for the company, for the innocent employees. And Lily, what do you think I should do about her? Take care of her, Victor said immediately. Give her the love and stability that I helped destroy in her life. She deserves to have a family that protects her, not one that abandons her. William observed his brother's face, searching for signs of sincerity or manipulation. He had known Victor his whole life, but he felt like he was looking at a stranger. Victor, are you going to turn yourself in to the authorities? If you think it's the right thing to do, yes. It's not my decision, William said. It's yours. You created this situation. You need to decide how you're going to try to fix it. When they left the cafe, the brothers parted without a hug or a handshake. William returned home carrying the weight of revelations that had fundamentally changed his understanding of his family and his company. At home, he found Eleanor and Lily preparing lunch, their cheerful voices echoing through the kitchen. The domestic normality contrasted brutally with the emotional chaos boiling inside him. "How was the meeting?" Eleanor asked, immediately noticing his disturbed expression. Later, he said softly, indicating Lily's presence. "We'll talk later." That afternoon, while Lily played in the yard, William told Eleanor everything Victor had confessed. When he finished, his wife was pale and silent. "What are we going to do?" she finally asked. "I don't know," William admitted, "but I know our life will never be the same." 3 days had passed since Victor's devastating confession, and the atmosphere in the house had completely changed. William walked through the rooms like a man carrying an invisible weight, alternating between moments of anger and periods of deep sadness. Eleanor tried to maintain normality for Lily, but the tension was palpable. It was on a seemingly normal morning, while William was reviewing legal documents in his home office, that Eleanor made a decision that would change everything again. She had spent the previous night sleepless, wrestling with a secret she had kept for years, one that the recent revelations had made impossible to continue hiding. "William," she said, entering the office with an expression he couldn't decipher, "I need to tell you something about Dolores Shaw." He looked up from the papers, immediately noticing something different in his wife's tone of voice. "What about Dolores?" Eleanor closed the door behind her and sat in the chair across from his desk. Her hands were visibly trembling. "I knew Dolores before she worked at your company." The words struck William like a thunderbolt. "What do you mean you knew her?" "We went to the same fertility clinic 6 years ago," Eleanor said, avoiding her husband's gaze. "Dolores was trying to get pregnant on her own through artificial insemination. I was undergoing my last treatment before giving up for good." William felt as if the world had stopped spinning. "Eleanor, why did you never tell me this?" "Because it was a very painful period for me," she replied, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Meeting Dolores made me realize she had the courage to pursue motherhood alone while I was failing to have a child, even with the support of a loving husband." "But that doesn't explain why you never mentioned you knew her when she started working at the company." Eleanor took a deep breath, preparing for an even bigger revelation. "Because I was the one who recommended Dolores for the job at your company." The silence that followed was deafening. William leaned back in his chair, trying to process this new layer of connections he hadn't imagined. "You recommended Dolores to work with me. She was desperate for a job. She was pregnant, alone, with no professional prospects. During one of our appointments at the clinic, she mentioned she had administrative experience but couldn't find work. I thought it would be a way to help her. And you never thought it relevant to tell me there was a personal connection?" "I wanted to tell you," Eleanor said, her voice breaking, "but the more time passed, the harder it became. And then, after she left the company so abruptly, I was afraid you would suspect I had done something wrong." William stood up and walked to the window, watching Lily play in the yard with Scout. The girl was teaching the dog simple tricks, her clear laughter echoing through the garden. Eleanor, do you realize how this changes everything? If you knew Dolores personally, you must have noticed when she started to become distressed at work. I did notice, Eleanor admitted. In the last few weeks before she left, Dolores seemed terrified. I tried to talk to her a few times, but she insisted everything was fine. And you never thought to alert me that one of our employees was obviously suffering. I thought about it, but... Eleanor hesitated, struggling with words that were hard to say. William, I was going through my own crisis at that time. I had just received the definitive news that I would never be able to conceive naturally. And I was processing the grief of the motherhood I would never have. Seeing Dolores with baby Lily caused me an emotional pain I could barely endure. The confession hit William deeply. He remembered that period as one of the most difficult in their marriage, when Eleanor had closed herself off emotionally and he hadn't known how to help her. So, you avoided getting involved in Dolores's situation because it reminded you of your own pain? Yes, she whispered. And now that I know what Victor did to her, I realize my omission contributed to destroying the life of a woman I had tried to help. At that moment, a soft knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Lily, with Scout by her side, both looking like they had been running through the garden. Aunt Eleanor, can I have some water? She asked, her cheerful voice a stark contrast to the tension in the office. Of course, dear. Eleanor replied, quickly drying her tears. Go to the kitchen and I'll be right there to help you. But Lily didn't leave immediately. Instead, she looked between the two adults with her sharp, childish perception. Are you two fighting? She asked, genuine concern in her voice. No, my dear, William said, crouching down to her level. Just talking about important grown-up things. Is it about me? The question was direct. Showing a disturbing maturity for her 4 years, William and Eleanor exchanged a look. How could they explain to a child that she was at the center of revelations affecting multiple generations? It's about how we can be the best possible family for you, Eleanor said, being honest within appropriate limits. Lily seemed to accept this explanation and went to get water, but not before giving a spontaneous hug to each of the adults. When they were alone again, William resumed the conversation with a question that had been tormenting him. Eleanor, is there anything else you haven't told me? About Dolores, about Lily, about any aspect of this situation? Eleanor hesitated for a long moment before answering. There is one thing. When Dolores stopped coming to the clinic appointments, I tried to contact her a few times. I left messages on her phone, but I never got a response. And one of the last times I tried to call, a woman answered. She said she was Clara, Dolores's sister, and that Dolores was in no condition to take calls from people from her past. Clara said that specifically? People from her past? She did. And when I asked if Dolores was okay, she replied that my family had already caused enough damage and hung up. William felt a chill run down his spine. My family? Did Clara know you were married to me? Apparently so. Although I never directly mentioned to Dolores that you were my husband during our meetings at the clinic, so Dolores figured out the connection on her own. She must have. Maybe she noticed my last name when she started working at the company, or maybe someone mentioned it. A new, terrible possibility occurred to William. Eleanor, do you think Dolores might have thought you were involved in the persecution Victor waged against her? Eleanor's face turned completely pale. My God, I never thought of that. But if she found out I was your wife, and if Victor was using company information to sabotage her, she might have thought we were accomplices, William completed. A family conspiracy against her. The weight of this possibility settled between them like a toxic cloud. If Dolores had spent her final years believing that the entire Harrison family had conspired against her, Her pain and despair must have been even greater than they imagined. "William, what are we going to do?" Eleanor asked, her voice almost a whisper. "We're going to find out the whole truth," he replied with determination. "And we're going to find a way to bring justice, not just for Dolores, but for Lily too." That afternoon, William called Edna Shaw and scheduled a new meeting. There were questions that needed to be answered and secrets that could no longer remain buried. As he made the call, he watched through the window as Eleanor taught Lily how to plant flowers in the garden. The image should have been comforting, but now it carried the weight of all the hidden connections that had shaped that child's destiny. The truth was revealing itself to be more complex and painful than any of them had imagined. The meeting with Edna Shaw took place in a small diner on the outskirts of the city, far from the places where William was usually recognized. Edna had insisted on a discreet location, claiming there was information that could be dangerous if it reached the wrong ears. When William arrived, he found Edna already settled at a back table, with a bulky folder beside her and an expression that mixed determination and nervousness. She seemed to have aged years in the past few weeks, the weight of family secrets clearly taking its toll. "Thank you for coming," she said, indicating the opposite chair. "I brought everything I promised. Letters from Dolores, documents, and some things you need to know about the real situation of your family." William sat down, noticing that Edna's hands trembled slightly as she organized the papers. "Edna, before we begin, I need to tell you something. My wife Eleanor knew Dolores before she worked at my company." Edna's face hardened immediately. "I knew it. What do you mean you knew?" "Dolores told me about the woman from the fertility clinic who had gotten her the job. She discovered the connection a few weeks after she started working." "And how did she react to this discovery?" Edna opened the folder and took out a yellowed handwritten letter in a feminine script. This letter was written by Dolores 3 weeks before she left the company. Read it. William took the letter and began to read in a low voice. "Dear Clara, I found out today that the woman who helped me get this job is married to the owner of the company, Eleanor Harrison. I don't know if this was planned or a coincidence, but I'm starting to feel like a puppet in a game I don't understand. Victor has been asking strange questions about my personal life, and today he suggested I should be more flexible with certain irregularities I've noticed in the contracts. I'm scared, Clara, scared of losing this job, scared I won't be able to support Lily, but also scared of what might happen if I don't do what they want." William paused the reading, feeling a growing nausea. The letter continued. "Yesterday I tried to talk to Eleanor about my concerns, hoping she could help me understand the situation, but she avoided me, pretended not to know me when I passed her in the hallway. Now I realize that maybe this was all planned from the beginning. Maybe they needed someone vulnerable, someone with no options, to involve in illegal schemes." "That's not true," William said, interrupting his reading. "Eleanor wasn't involved in any scheme." "Keep reading," Edna insisted. "Today, Victor was direct with me. He said I know too much about irregularities and that I need to choose between staying quiet or facing the consequences. When I asked what consequences, he mentioned that people like me, without support networks, can disappear easily without anyone asking questions. Clara, I'm so scared. I don't know who to trust. If something happens to me, please take care of Lily. She's the only good thing I have in this world." William finished the letter in silence, Dolores's words echoing in his mind. The woman had died believing his entire family had conspired against her. "Edna, did Victor really physically threaten Dolores?" "He didn't just threaten her," Edna replied, pulling another document from the folder. "He hired people to intimidate her." The document was a payment receipt to a private security firm, signed by Victor, with the vague description, "Personal Dissuasion Services." Dolores was followed. she received anonymous threatening calls. Her car was vandalized a few times, Edna explained, all to ensure she wouldn't report what she knew. William felt physically ill. "Why didn't you take this information to the authorities sooner?" "Because I was threatened too," Edna admitted. "After Dolores disappeared, I received a visit from two men who said it would be prudent to forget anything she might have told me. And you believed we were capable of harming you. William, when you have little money, little power, and you see rich people making threats, you believe whatever you need to in order to protect your family." Edna then took a sealed envelope from the folder. "But there's something else you need to know, something that not even Dolores knew completely." "What?" "About Lily's father." William leaned forward. All this time, he had assumed Lily's father was unknown or had abandoned Dolores during her pregnancy. Dolores got pregnant through artificial insemination, right? An anonymous donor? "No," Edna said. Opening the envelope, Dolores lied about that to protect everyone involved. Inside the envelope were documents from a private fertility clinic and a photo of a young dark-haired man with kind eyes and a familiar smile. "This is Silas Perry," Edna said. "He worked as a veterinarian at a clinic here in town 6 years ago. Dolores and he met when she brought an injured cat in for treatment." William studied the photo, feeling there was something familiar about the man's face and what happened to him. Silas was in love with Dolores, but she was terrified of her financial and emotional situation. When she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. Silas wanted to marry her, take responsibility, but Dolores believed she would be a burden to him. So she made up the story of the anonymous donor? Exactly. And when Silas insisted on being part of the baby's life, Dolores disappeared from town for a few months. When she came back, she told everyone she had undergone artificial insemination in another city. And Silas, what happened to him? He looked for her for months. He even hired a private detective to find her. But when he finally managed to locate her, she was already working at your company and... Edna paused, checking to see if anyone was listening. Silas received a visit from two men who advised him to stop looking for Dolores and to disappear from the city. "Victor," William murmured. Dolores never knew Silas was threatened. She believed he had simply given up on her and the baby. William felt like he was in a labyrinth of lies and manipulations that grew more complex with each revelation. "Where is Silas now?" "That's the most surprising part," Edna said with a small smile. "He never completely gave up. He moved to Kansas, but he continued to look for Dolores discreetly. 2 months ago, he contacted me, said he had hired a new detective and found out about Lily's situation. He knows about the girl. He knows Dolores had a daughter, but he doesn't know the girl is with you. He believes she still lives with relatives in Clearwater." William leaned back in his chair, processing all the information. Lily had a living father who had spent years looking for her and her mother, unaware that his daughter was an orphan and in need of a family. "Edna, did you contact Silas after you learned I was taking care of Lily?" "Not yet," she replied. "I first wanted to understand your true intentions with the girl, whether you're just trying to ease your guilt or if you really care about her. And what is your conclusion?" Edna studied William's face for a long moment. "I believe you genuinely care about Lily, but she has a biological father who never stopped looking for her. Are you willing to face that reality?" The question struck William deeply. For the past few weeks, he had started to think of Lily as his daughter. The idea that there was a man who had legal and emotional rights to her was terrifying. "What does Silas want?" he asked. "He wants to meet his daughter and try to make up for lost time. But he also wants justice for Dolores. Justice how? He wants everyone responsible for destroying Dolores's life to pay for their actions. That includes your brother and anyone who was complicit." William realized he was at a crossroads. He could continue to fight to keep Lily, But that would mean depriving a child of knowing her biological father. Or he could facilitate the reunion, running the risk of losing the girl who had changed his life. "When does Silas plan to come here?" he asked. "He's already here," Edna replied. "He arrived last night and is staying at the hotel in the city center. The meeting with Silas was scheduled for the next morning at the same hotel where he was staying." William spent the entire night awake, alternating between anxiety and a strange sense of relief. Finally, all the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, even if the final picture wasn't what he had expected. Silas Perry was waiting in the hotel lobby, looking exactly like the photo Edna had shown, but the years had added a few expression lines to his youthful face. At 35, he maintained the confident posture of someone who had rebuilt his life after adversity, but his eyes revealed a vulnerability that William recognized immediately. It was the same expression he saw in the mirror ever since he had found Lily. "Mr. Harrison," Silas asked, rising from an armchair in the lobby. "I'm Silas Perry." The handshake was firm but not hostile. William had expected confrontation, accusations, perhaps even aggression. Instead, he found a man who seemed genuinely grateful for the meeting. "Thank you for agreeing to talk to me," Silas said, as they headed to a private room in the hotel. "I know this situation is complicated for everyone involved. Silas, before anything else, I need you to know that Lily is an extraordinary girl," William said directly. "She has been through significant trauma, but she is recovering well in our home. Edna told me about the circumstances in which you found her," Silas replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And I am eternally grateful to you for saving my daughter when I couldn't be there to protect her." The response surprised William. He had expected jealousy or resentment, not gratitude. "You didn't know she needed protection," William said. "The circumstances were complex. They were criminal," Silas corrected firmly. "What your brother did to Dolores was criminal, and what he did to me as well. Tell me about what happened to you." Silas took a deep breath, clearly reliving painful memories. "When Dolores disappeared during her pregnancy, I was desperate. I hired a detective, put up posters around town, offered a reward for information. I was prepared to take full responsibility for the child and for Dolores. And then, about 6 months later, I managed to find out she had returned and was working at your company. I went there to talk to her, but 2 men intercepted me in the parking lot." "What kind of men?" "Private security. They said there were important people interested in me stopping my search for Dolores. They offered me money to leave town and never come back. And you accepted?" Silas laughed bitterly. "I refused, of course. Then they became more persuasive. They said they knew about my veterinary clinic, they knew my schedule, they knew my family. They insinuated that accidents could happen if I kept insisting." William felt a growing nausea. "And you still didn't give up?" "I tried to find Dolores directly. I got her address and went to the house where she lived with the child. But when I got there, the house was empty. Neighbors said she had moved out in the middle of the night without telling anyone. Victor forced her to move, apparently. And it wasn't the only time. For 2 years, every time I managed to locate her, she would disappear again, until I finally realized that my insistence was causing her even more suffering." "So you gave up?" "I never gave up," Silas said with determination. "I changed my strategy. I left town, settled in Kansas, and hired discreet detectives to monitor the situation from afar. I wanted to ensure that Dolores and the child were safe, even if I couldn't be present." William began to understand the extent of the tragedy. Silas had spent years trying to protect a family that didn't even know he still cared. "When did you find out that Dolores had passed?" 3 months ago, Silas replied, tears forming in his eyes. "The detective informed me that she had died under mysterious circumstances and that the child was missing." "Mysterious circumstances?" Dolores was found in a cheap hotel room 2 hours away, apparently from an overdose of depression medication. But there was no medical history of a prescription for those drugs. William felt a chill run down his spine. Are you suggesting it wasn't natural? I'm suggesting that a woman who fought for years to protect her daughter would not have abandoned the child voluntarily, Silas said. Dolores loved Lily more than her own life. But then why did she leave Lily with Clara? Because Clara was her only safe option at that moment. Dolores was being persecuted, constantly threatened. Leaving Lily with her sister was a temporary measure while she tried to find a permanent solution. At that moment, William's cell phone rang. It was Eleanor, her voice tense on the other end of the line. William, you need to come home immediately, she said. Lily is very agitated. She said she remembered something about her mom, something important. I'm on my way, William replied. Hanging up quickly, he looked at Silas. Lily remembered something about Dolores. Do you want to come with me? Silas hesitated. She doesn't know who I am. I don't want to scare her. Maybe it's time she knew she has a father who never stopped looking for her. On the way home, William told Silas about the last few weeks with Lily, about her sweet and resilient personality, about how she had adapted to her new family. Silas listened in silence, absorbing every detail about the daughter he had missed years of life with. When they arrived at the house, they found Lily in her room, hugging Scout, clearly upset. Eleanor was sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to comfort her. What happened? William asked. She woke up from a nap, screaming her mother's name. Eleanor explained. She said she remembered a conversation she overheard between Dolores and Clara the night before Dolores left. William knelt beside the bed. Lily, my angel, can you tell us what you remembered? Mommy was crying, Lily said in a small voice. She told Aunt Clara that bad people were going to hurt her if she didn't leave. She said she had to hide to protect me. What else do you remember? William asked gently. Mommy said she had a special friend who loved me very much, but that the bad men wouldn't let him get close to us. She said that if anything happened to her, I should look for this friend. Silas took a step forward, unable to contain himself. Does she remember this friend's name? Lily looked at the stranger with curiosity. Who are you, mister? William looked at Eleanor, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Lily, this is Silas. He was your mommy's special friend. What did my mommy say about me? Silas asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Lily studied him carefully. Mommy said you had kind eyes and that you took care of hurt little animals. She said you loved me even before you met me. Tears rolled freely down Silas's face. It's true. I love you so much, little one. Are you my daddy? Lily asked directly, with the brutal honesty of children. I am, Silas replied, and I've spent all these years looking for you and your mommy. At that moment, something unexpected happened. Eleanor stood up abruptly, her face pale. William, she said, her voice almost a whisper, I need to tell you something. Something that could change everything again. What is it, Ellie? I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was absolute. William, Silas, and even Lily stared at Eleanor, processing the impact of this unexpected revelation. Eleanor's revelation created an atmosphere of tense silence in the room. William looked at his wife as if he were seeing a ghost, while Silas discreetly moved away to give the couple privacy. Lily, with her childish sensitivity, sensed that something important had happened, but didn't fully understand its meaning. Pregnant? William murmured, sitting heavily in the chair next to the bed. Ellie, how? When did you find out? I took the test yesterday, Eleanor replied, her hands trembling slightly. I was 2 weeks late, but I thought it was stress from everything that's been happening. Silas, respecting the family moment, turned to Lily. Little one, how about you show me your toys while Uncle William and Aunt Eleanor talk? Lily hesitated for a moment, then took Silas's hand and led him to the living room. You can get to know Scout better, she said. He's very smart. Alone in the room, William and Eleanor faced the reality of yet another twist in their already completely transformed lives. William, I know the timing is terrible, Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face. After years of trying, now that we have Lily, now that everything is so complicated. Ellie, stop, William interrupted, getting up to hug her. This baby is a miracle. After all the years of trying, of pain, of giving up, it's a miracle. But what about Lily? How do we explain to her that she might have to choose between staying with us or with her biological father just when we're about to have a baby? The question hit the heart of the dilemma they were facing. For the past few weeks, Lily had become the center of their lives. The idea of having to share her, or, worse, lose her to Silas was devastating. Maybe it doesn't have to be a choice, William said thoughtfully. Maybe we can find a solution that works for everyone. What do you mean? Silas spent years looking for Lily. He has legal rights, but he also seems genuinely interested in her well-being. Maybe we can work together instead of competing. In the living room, Silas was on the floor playing with Lily and Scout, a scene that deeply touched Eleanor when she left the room. There was a naturalness to the interaction that confirmed the biological connection between father and daughter. Silas, William said, entering the room, we need to talk about Lily's future. Of course, Silas replied, standing up but keeping Lily close. I imagine my presence complicates things for you. Actually, said Eleanor, maybe it simplifies them. Silas looked at her with curiosity. We're pregnant, William explained. After years of trying, we finally succeeded. But that doesn't change our love for Lily. Congratulations, Silas said sincerely. And don't worry, I didn't come here to separate Lily from you. I came to get to know her and make sure she has everything she needs. Is Uncle Silas going to live here too? Lily asked, looking between the adults. The innocent question opened up a possibility none of them had fully considered. Lily, William said, crouching beside her, how would you feel if Silas was your daddy and I was your special godfather? And if we all took care of you together? Like a big family? She asked, her eyes shining with interest, exactly like a big family. At that moment, William's phone rang. It was Victor, his voice filled with urgency. William, I need to talk to you immediately, he said. There are legal developments you need to know about. What kind of developments? Edna Shaw filed a lawsuit today. She's suing the company for moral damages and asking for compensation for the destruction of Dolores's life. William felt his stomach tighten. Victor, where are you? At the office. And there's more. There are rumors that federal investigators are interested in the case. If the accusations of corruption and intimidation are confirmed, I'll be there in an hour, William said, hanging up. He turned to Silas and Eleanor. The legal situation is getting complicated. Victor could face criminal charges, and that could affect the entire company. What does that mean for Lily? Eleanor asked. It means there could be a prolonged legal battle, and... William hesitated before continuing. It means our financial stability could be compromised. Silas spoke up. William, I have a proposal. Over the past few years, I've built a successful veterinary clinic in Kansas. I have financial stability and can offer security for Lily if needed. Are you offering to take Lily away? I'm offering a safety net, Silas corrected. If things get too complicated here, Lily will always have a home with me. But my preference is for her to stay with you, who she knows as her family. Eleanor was silent for a moment, then asked a question that surprised everyone. Silas, would you consider moving here? What do you mean? You can practice veterinary medicine anywhere. Lily is settled here, has a routine, is about to start school, and... She looked at William frankly, with a baby on the way. We could use the help. The suggestion was bold and unconventional, but there was an emotional logic to it that made sense to all of them. Are you offering for me to move here and for us to be a blended family? Silas asked. We're offering for Lily to have access to both fathers who love her, William replied, and to create a situation where she doesn't have to choose or lose anyone. Lily, who had been listening to the conversation with an attention beyond her years, spoke up. Can I have Uncle William, Aunt Eleanor, Daddy Silas, and the new baby, all together? If we all agree, yes, Eleanor said. And can Scout stay too? Scout will always stay with you, Silas promised. That afternoon, while William went to resolve the legal crisis at the company, Silas, Eleanor, and Lily spent time together, getting to know each other better and exploring how a non-traditional family could work. Silas, Eleanor said, while Lily played in the yard, I need to apologize. Why? If I had been more attentive to the signs that Dolores was suffering, maybe I could have helped before it was too late. Eleanor, you can't blame yourself for Victor's actions. Dolores hid so much of the truth to protect everyone, including you. But I avoided getting involved because it reminded me of my own pain. It was selfish. It was human, Silas corrected. No one can take care of others if they don't take care of themselves first. That night, William returned home exhausted, but with mixed news. Victor has decided to turn himself in to the authorities, he informed them. He's going to confess everything and cooperate with the investigations. And the company, Eleanor asked, it will survive, but it will need a complete restructuring. Robert will take over management temporarily while I step away to focus on the family. That means less income, Silas observed. It means different priorities, William corrected. Money can be remade. Lost families can't. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, the three adults had an honest conversation about how to proceed. It won't be easy, Eleanor admitted. A family with 2 children, 3 adults, complex legal issues. But it will be our family, Silas said. And after years of searching, I've finally found where I belong. So, we're doing this? William asked. Are we really going to try to make this unconventional family work? For Lily, Silas, and Eleanor said almost simultaneously. For our family, William corrected, extending his hands to the other 2. When they joined hands, they sealed a commitment that would change all of their lives forever. 6 months later, the house that once housed only William and Eleanor had transformed into a vibrant home full of life. The garden, tended by Silas with his veterinary expertise, flourished with plants that attracted colorful birds, creating an environment that delighted Lily every day. The girl, now 5, had grown in confidence and joy, her sweet and resilient personality blooming completely in the safe and loving environment. The adjustment had not been simple. In the first few months, there were conflicts over responsibilities, occasional jealousies, and moments of tension when different parenting approaches clashed. But gradually, the 3 adults found a rhythm that worked, based on mutual respect and a shared love for Lily. Silas had established a small but prosperous veterinary clinic in town, specializing in the care of pets. His decision to move had been made easier by the discovery that there was a real demand for his services in the region. Scout became a sort of mascot for the clinic, demonstrating to other pet owners how proper care could completely transform the life of an abandoned animal. The legal situation had also finally been resolved. Victor was serving a reduced sentence due to his full cooperation with the authorities and had agreed to pay substantial compensation to the victims of his actions. Part of that money was directed to an educational fund for Lily, ensuring her education would be secure regardless of the family's financial fluctuations. Harrison and Brothers had been completely restructured under Robert's management, implementing rigorous transparency protocols that ensured the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. William maintained a minority stake, but had stepped back from daily operations to focus on his family. On that September morning, Eleanor was in her 8th month of pregnancy. her prominent belly making some movements difficult, but radiating a happiness that lit up the whole house. Lily had become extremely protective of the little brother in the tummy, as she called the baby, talking to him every day and picking out toys she thought he would like. "Daddy's Silas," Lily said, running to the kitchen where he was making breakfast. "The baby kicked when I sang to him." "It's because he already recognizes your voice," Silas replied, picking her up. "You're going to be a wonderful big sister, and I'm going to teach him everything," she said proudly. "How to take care of Scout, how to draw birds, and how not to be scared when the grown-ups need to talk about important things." Lily's emotional maturity continued to surprise the three adults. She had developed a remarkable ability to process change and adapt to new situations, a skill born from the adversities of her early years, but now flourishing in an environment of security. "Is Uncle William down yet?" she asked. "He's still in the office making some important calls," Silas replied. William was, in fact, finalizing the details of a project he'd been planning for months. A foundation in Dolores Shaw's name, dedicated to supporting single mothers in vulnerable situations. The foundation would offer not only financial support, but also legal protection for women facing threats or intimidation in the workplace. When he came down for breakfast, he found the family gathered around the table, a scene of domestic normality that still moved him every day. "Good news," he announced, sitting next to Eleanor. "The foundation received final approval. We'll begin operations next month." "Does that mean other mummies won't go through what my mommy went through?" Lily asked. "Exactly that," William confirmed. "We're going to help so that no child has to go through what you went through." Lily nodded gravely, as if she understood the importance of the project. "Mommy would be happy," she said simply. After breakfast, while Silas went to his clinic and William to a meeting about the foundation, Eleanor and Lily had their daily tradition, a walk through the garden, watering the plants and talking about the day. "Aunt Eleanor," Lily said as she helped water the sunflowers, "when the baby is born, will he love me like you guys love me?" "He'll love you even more," Eleanor replied, "because you'll be the first person he knows besides us. You'll be his big sister, his protector, his best friend. And when he grows up, am I going to tell him about my real mom and about how I found our family? If you want to tell him, yes. And we will help you keep your mother's memory alive forever." That afternoon, there was an unexpected visit. Edna Shaw arrived at the house, but this time her expression was calm, almost serene. She had long since stopped trying to claim custody of Lily, especially after seeing how the girl had flourished in her current family environment. "I came to bring something that belongs to Lily," she said, taking a small wooden box from her bag. Inside the box were a few photos of Dolores with baby Lily, a rag doll that had been made by Dolores herself, and a sealed letter with the name "For my daughter when she grows up." "Dolores gave me this before she left for the last time," Edna explained. "She said that if anything happened to her, I should give it to Lily when she was in a safe and loving home." Lily held the rag doll with reverence, instantly recognizing the object. "It's Blossom," she exclaimed. "Mommy made her for me when I was tiny. Do you want us to read Mommy's letter?" Eleanor asked gently. Lily nodded, sitting on Eleanor's lap as William carefully opened the envelope. The letter was written in the same feminine hand he had seen in the documents Edna had shown him earlier. "My dearest Lily, if you are reading this letter, it means you have found a family that truly loves you. I always knew you were special, that you had a heart big enough to love many people and be loved by many people too. Don't be sad for me, my daughter. Be happy because you managed to find the love I always wanted to give you, but that circumstances sometimes made difficult. Always be kind. Always be brave. And remember that you carry the best of me, but you also have room to create your own wonderful story. Your real father is a good man who loves you very much, and I'm sure that when you meet, it will be magical. And if you have brothers or sisters of the heart, love them as I would have wanted to love you every day, with all the love in the world, Mum." When William finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Edna was crying silently. "Mummy knew I was going to find you," Lily said in amazement. "She knew Daddy Silas was going to find me, and that I was going to have a little brother." "Your mother was very wise," said Silas, who had arrived from the clinic in the middle of the reading, "and she was right about everything." That night, after Lily fell asleep hugging the Blossom doll, the three adults sat on the porch to talk about the future. The baby was due in a few weeks, and they wanted to make sure all the preparations were ready. "You know what impresses me the most?" Eleanor said, stroking her belly. "How Lily transformed all of us. William became more sensitive and present. I learned that family can be built in different ways, and you, Silas, prove that true love never gives up." "And Lily?" William asked. "How did we transform her?" "We didn't transform her," Silas replied. "We just gave her the safe environment to be who she always was, an extraordinary girl, full of love and courage." 3 weeks later, Julia Harrison Perry was born on a sunny October morning. Lily was in the hospital waiting room with Silas, anxious to meet her little sister. When they could finally enter the room, the scene was magical. Eleanor was holding the baby, William was by her side with tears of joy, and Lily approached with reverence. "She's so tiny," Lily whispered, gently touching the baby's little hand. "Hi, Julia. I'm your sister Lily. I'm going to take care of you forever." Julia opened her eyes as if recognizing the voice, and Lily laughed with pure joy. "She knows me," she exclaimed. "Daddy Silas, she knows me." That afternoon, when they returned home with Julia, they found Scout waiting patiently at the door, as if he knew the family had grown. The dog carefully sniffed the baby and then positioned himself next to the crib, assuming his role as the protector of another precious child. "Our family is complete," William said, hugging Eleanor as he watched Lily and Silas take turns rocking Julia. "No," Lily corrected, looking at them with a radiant smile. "Our family is just beginning." And so, in a house that had once been silent and sad, the laughter of children, loving conversations, and the sounds of a family that had chosen to love each other unconditionally now echoed. Dolores Shaw finally rested in peace, knowing that her daughter had found not just a home, but an extraordinary family that would prove that true love can heal any wound and build bridges where once there were only walls. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.